Hello! Today we are going to talk about troubleshooting common houseplant problems because somebody suggested that I do a video on that topic and I thought it was a super duper idea. You have a houseplant problem. You need to diagnose it. You're not sure how. You're Googling all you can. You're texting Betsy Begonia on Instagram trying to figure out what's going on. Here's a video to help you figure it out. You should consider 5 things first. 1. Lighting. What kind of lighting does your plant require, and what kind of lighting are you actually providing it with? If it's a plant that requires a ton of sun and you have it in a north-facing window, no good. You gotta fix that. 2. Temperature. If your plant requires really warm temperatures and you have it in an unheated room in the middle of winter, it's not gonna do so well. Some plants like cooler temperatures at nighttime and warmer temperatures during the day. So what you gotta do is research that plant, figure it out, and do your best to, fulfill its planty desires. 3. Humidity. If you have a tropical or subtropical plant that requires a lot of humidity, like a calathea or a prayer plant, and you're not providing it with adequate humidity, it's gonna hate you. It's gonna be super upset and it's gonna get all dry and crispy and give you the little plant finger. 4. Watering. Are you overwatering your plant? I don't know if I believe you. Watering causes so many problems with houseplants because people get a little overzealous, they give a little too much water, a little too often, or they underwater the plant and it causes drought stress, and I'll talk about the symptoms of that later in this video. 5. Bugs. Check your plants over. If they're showing signs of suffering, they have some weird symptoms, just take a real close looky-loo, see if you got some bugs on there. Common problem number 1 is leaf drop. The plant is dropping leaves and you're not sure why. Usually this is an indication that the plant is being overwatered, especially if the leaves are turning yellow before they drop off. So some things to consider are, how often are you watering the plant? Are you letting the soil dry out between waterings? Is the pot too big? Because if the pot is too big, then it has way too much soil and the roots don't have enough time to soak up all of the water from the soil, then they're too wet for too long and it causes root rot. It's a common problem for, you didn't know I had this. You didn't know I had it. You didn't expect that. It's a common problem for begonias, which is why I keep mine in a teeny tiny pot. So you see the pot itself is only 10 centimeters high, 10 centimeters wide, but the entire plant is 60 centimeters. If I put my begonia in a really big pot, then it would probably show some symptoms of overwatering. These leaves would turn yellow and fall off. Plants like succulents and cacti like to go a really long time between waterings because they are from an environment where it's dry for really long periods of time, so they've evolved to hold on to a lot of water within the plant so that they can survive. And if you overwater them, the leaves will often become like kind of spongy and like swollen because they've retained too much water. They'll turn yellow and they'll drop off. So the best thing to do is put your succulents and cacti in a really quick draining soil and let them go super dry between waterings. But a plant like Alocasia poly, they prefer a soil that, I personally use peat moss and perlite, and so the soil retains moisture, like it's quick draining. It has all that perlite so that the water goes straight through, but it does retain some moisture because this is a plant that doesn't like to go too dry for too long. I personally put it in terracotta because I am a serial overwaterer and I like to take precautionary measures to make sure that I don't overwater my plants. Another reason that your leaves might be dropping is that the plant doesn't get enough light, especially if it's etiolated looking. It's like long and spindly and it has really short leaves and it's reaching towards the light source, like the plant is actually bending. That's a clear sign that the plant is not getting enough light and you need to fix it. If you have nothing but north-facing windows, you can't have a hibiscus. I'm sorry, it's not gonna work. Go to the store, get yourself a prayer plant, call it a day. The 3rd reason that your plant might be dropping leaves is low temperature. Ficus benjamina, or weeping fig, is especially susceptible to this. I know very well because I grew up with a mother who would buy a Ficus benjamina every single year and slowly proceed to kill it day by day. If you keep a plant like that that's really sensitive to temperatures, close to a cold window or a door that's open and closing, like opening and closing all the time and letting in cold air and cold drafts, it can affect the plant and it can start dropping leaves. So you just want to make sure that you can maintain temperatures around a plant and you're not subjecting it to a lot of temperature fluctuations or cold temperatures if it's a warm temperature loving plant. Problem number 2, plant wilting. You notice that your plant's looking a little down, its leaves are drooping. It's like, oh, I don't feel so well. I have a tummy ache. Usually a sign of overwatering or underwatering. Peace lilies, for example, or crotons, they will really dramatically wilt when they need water. And you just give them a little drink, about an hour later, they'll perk right up as if they had a cup of coffee. It could also be caused by overwatering, especially with succulents. If they're getting like really top heavy and they sort of like start wilting to the side, it might be that the leaves are retaining too much moisture because you've overwatered them and they become really heavy and like wilt. So it can be caused by overwatering as well. It could also be caused by a plant being root bound. So you'll want to take a look at the roots. You can kind of, I won't actually do it with this because it'll be a mess, but you put the plant sideways, pop it out a little bit and take a look at the roots. If you see nothing but roots all the way around, your plant is root bound and it's probably not getting enough water because you water it, soaks up all that water real fast, and you just, the soil isn't retaining enough moisture to nourish the plant with as much water as it needs. So in that case, you just need to put it in a bigger pot. Houseplant problem number 3, brown leaf tips, the bane of every Instagrammer's existence. I'll show you on my calathea. I have some brown leaf tips. See it there? Nice and crispy, just like a potato chip. Probably caused by drought stress in this case because it occurred while the leaf was still developing, but it can be caused by a number of things. Putain, that's heavy. Another cause for brown leaf tips would be humidity. Plants like calathea need really high levels of humidity. It's very difficult to maintain the levels of humidity that they really need in our homes without feeling like we're living in a swamp. In my experience, calathea medallion, for example, a wet pebble tray is not enough to maintain the humidity that this plant requires. I really need a humidifier for this plant. But my Calathea mosaica network, for example, does just fine in the same room without a pebble tray or anything like that. Depends on the plant, but Calathea medallion and Maranta, prayer plants especially, need high levels of humidity around them or they will turn brown. Another reason would be too much fertilizer. It's not a magic potion. Some plants prefer diluted fertilizer and they only need it once every 2 weeks or once a month. You really just have to research it for that particular plant. I find that the Calathea medallion is especially susceptible to chemical burn from too much fertilizer. So I'm very careful about fertilizing it. I only do it in the summertime and I do it with like half diluted fertilizer once every 2 weeks or sometimes just once a month because I forget. Cold temperatures can cause the edges of leaves to brown and die. It can cause cell death in the tips of the leaves. For example, if it's winter and the leaves are up against the glass, the cold from the window can cause the leaves damage and they'll turn brown. So be careful to maintain nice warm temperatures around your plants that like warm temperatures. And the last thing could be your tap water. I mean, it could be, it might be, it might also not be. I go into great detail about the whole tap water conundrum in my Calathea care video, so if you're interested in learning about that and the toxicity of chlorine or chloramine in plants like Calatheas, check out that video and, I'll tell you all about it. Problem number 4, you've got a plant that's supposed to be flowering, but it's not flowering. I'll tell you what, it's probably not getting enough light. You need to provide it with adequate light. So research the plant, research the amount of light it needs, and adjust accordingly. Another reason, for example, if it's growing a lot of green foliage, but it's not producing flowers, you may need to take a look at your fertilizing regimen and give it the correct fertilizer to initiate blooms rather than foliage. Problem number 6, bugs. Check your plant over. If you see any kind of insects or bugs or creepy crawlies on it, identify the bug. Super easy using Google. Just gotta type, most common houseplant pests, and you'll see plenty of horrible pictures of terrible critters, and then treat it accordingly. I have one video about treating 6 very common household pests, if you'd like to check that out. And I also have an entire video just about fungus gnats and treating fungus gnats with beneficial nematodes or diatomaceous earth. So you can check out that video too. Problem number 7, leaf spots. There are a few different reasons that you could have leaf spots, and it can take a bit of research to identify them. Hoyas, for example, a lot of people freak out because their leaves might develop little red spots, and it's usually just an indication that the plant has gotten too much direct sun, but it's not extraordinarily harmful or anything like that. It's just a sign that you need to pull it out of the sun a little bit because they prefer indirect light. My Hoya australis lisa has some leaf spots, and the leaves are turning yellow and falling off, and that's because the soil that the plant was shipped in is way too heavy and rich. It retains way too much moisture, so the plant is probably experiencing some root rot. The roots are just way too wet for too long. I'm trying to treat it as quickly as I can, but that's what this sort of spot is indicating to me. You might also have fungal or bacterial infections. A fungal infection usually appears as brown spots with a yellow halo around them, and they can kill entire portions of the leaf or the plant. Bacterial infections can cause brown spots that are like mushy looking, and they might also have a yellow halo around them. Basically, you just need to identify what it is, do some research, do some Googling, read some information in forums about that specific plant, and once you identify it, just take the correct measures to treat it. If it's a fungal infection, get an antifungal treatment. If it's a bacterial infection, get an, do what you gotta do. Or if, like this, it's due to overwatering, then you need to figure out how to stop watering your plant and put it in the correct soil. So those are the 7 most typical houseplant problems that people incur. I hope that that was helpful. If you're having any houseplant problems, I hope it helps you to diagnose them and treat them accordingly. If you have any comments or questions, leave it down below and I'll get back to you. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see other houseplant videos, check out my channel, subscribe because I put out one video every single week. And I just want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day and I will see you soon.